All right, welcome back to Sunday Sound Off, and our first hot topic of the night. I think both of these jobs are going to be open at the end of the season. The panel might think differently, but which is the better job, K-State or Mizzou? Jarrett, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so I'm biased, obviously. Let's
seriously?
Preface that, right? Let's preface that right from the start. I look at this. I was talking to a buddy of mine that is a K-State fan, and I said, would you trade us, Bruce Weber, for Kim Anderson? And he looked at me in shock and said, absolutely not. And I don't know if Mizzou fans would say the same thing. So both programs are in a tough spot. I look at these programs, and they're in two different leagues. I look at Missouri. They're in the Southeastern Conference. The SEC as a league is going to be improved next year. They are going on a trajectory north. And right now, Missouri is in the tank. You talk 34 straight road losses. I think Kim Anderson's time is done at Missouri. And I look at the situation now with Missouri being a new athletic director. They have great facilities. They're located in the state of Missouri where there's not the competition in-state as opposed to Kansas State that is going to compete with Wichita State. They're going to compete with Kansas. But I think both programs are in a place where they've experienced winning. They've had a taste of winning in these last 10 years. When you talk about Frank Martin at Kansas State that did such a terrific job and left for South Carolina. And for me personally, having played for Mike Anderson, to turn around a program my freshman year that was in the tank and coming back from the Stefan Hanna situation when I was a redshirt freshman, and we turned it around. By the end of the year, we're in the Elite Eight, and we're coming back to a parade, being minutes from a Final Four. So my point is, you can turn around a program in a first year. It can happen. And I think when you look at both programs, it's a decision that is important for both teams moving forward. I look at Missouri being a chance to win and win now and be in the top 5 in the SEC. When you look at the Big 12, it's a juggernaut night in and night out in the Big 12. I played in the Big 12. I know what that is like. It's a great league. And Kansas State's a good job. You can recruit there. But again, moving forward, it's going to be interesting to see what programs put at their top tier coaches, because I think there's some names out there. I think there's good candidates that are going to be out there that I think both programs are going to have a shot at. We'll just see how it plays out.
Sam?
Yeah, I guess I look at this two different ways. I think in the short term, Kansas State is the better job. They've got better players. I think K-State has a chance to be pretty decent next year. That sophomore class has a lot of talent in it. I think Xavier Sneed is going to be a really nice player really soon, probably by next year. I think long term, I think Missouri's a better job. I think, Jarrett mentioned the recruiting base. I think you can recruit a lot better to Mizzou, not just with more in-state talent, but less competition in-state for that talent. I think the SEC long-term is an easier league to win in, compared to the Big 12. If Kansas and Kentucky can cancel each other out, I think the teams right below Kansas are better than the teams right below Kentucky. So there's a little bit more room to move up and be a perennial winner in the SEC, and I think those are the things you have to look at long term. But next year, just in the short term, I think you're going to win more games at K-State.
Sam, yes or no? Both coaches gone?
I think if Bruce Weber does not make the tournament, he's fired. Okay. And I think that he's still got a chance to coach his way in, although that was a horrendous, disastrous, inexcusable, embarrassing, in pretty much every way loss the other day against Oklahoma.
Okay. Soren?
I'll be a little bit surprised if John Curry pulls the trigger on Bruce Weber. I think he should be gone, but I'll be surprised if that happens. Look, both these programs carry the challenge of 90 to 2-hour drives from their major metropolitan areas. I think they both have great fan bases that will certainly support a team that warrants being supported. I mean, you got to put a product out on the floor. I don't want to hear about empty gyms at either one of these locations. When those teams win, their fans are there, and that's all you can ask of a fan base. Nobody goes down and supports a turd. It doesn't happen anywhere in this country. So when they're winning, they've got the fan support. I think the real question here, look, if everything's even, I'll give the nod to Missouri. All right, it is the only program in the state, as Jared said, and the SEC is a little bit easier, but they do still play in the shadow of Kansas because they got to compete with Kansas for recruits in St. Louis. That's part of the place. That's one of the schools that beats them in their backyard. And now they play in the shadow of Kentucky. It's not as dark a shadow as it was playing in the Big 12 with Kansas. So there's still a bit of a shadow there for Missouri to deal with. The bottom line for me is this: if Missouri will fully support basketball as a university, then it's the better job. But to this point, they've never been willing to pay their coach, at least not since Quinn Snyder came around. Have they been willing to actually pay their coach? Mike Anderson having to flirt with Oregon and Georgia just to get his pay to where it should have been already was ridiculous. They've got to put the money into the basketball program. They'll do it for facilities. Why they won't do it for a coach is unbelievable. So if they're going to toddle out there for $600 grand again, no, the program sucks. If they're going to put $2 million, $2.5 million, $3 3.5, $4 million on the table for a guy like Greg Marshall, yeah, Missouri is the superior program. But right now, all indications are K-State will spend more, and at the end of the day, that'll make them the more attractive job.
All right, here's our second hot topic of the evening. Will the Royals get Eric Hosmer on the bottom line for a long-term contract? Sam, you're up.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think this is a long shot. I think that the story that the excellent, maybe the best in the business, Ken Rosenthal had with Scott Boras and quoting Eric Hosmer as well was a really good PR move on his part. Let people know that they're trying, that they're open, all those things. But you know, when he's talking like a 10-year extension, and now you know there's words or rumors or whatever that they think he's worth more than Brandon Belt. I just think at the end of the day, like when these negotiations happen, the value that each side is putting on Eric Hosmer is going to be a lot different. And the Royals love Eric Hosmer, absolutely adore him. They love what he does in the community. They love how he is in the clubhouse. They love what he's done in the postseason. But even that 24 home run, 104 RBI season that he had last year, if you look just a little bit below, I'm not even talking about WAR and all these things. If you just look at on base and slugging, it wasn't that productive of a season. So I think there's going to be a huge gap right now if they're trying to negotiate this in February and March, you know, compared to what it's going to be at the end of the season, especially if he has a big year. So I just think that Eric Hosmer is going to ride it out. Because if you notice in that Ken Rosenthal story, he talked a lot about free agency as a right, and to give that up is a hard thing for any player. I think he's going to try and ride that out and see what he can get in the open market when Boston and New York, among other teams, are going to be looking for a first baseman.
Seren, you talked to Dayton Moore about this.
I did, and you know, look, it might be, and I'll blatantly admit, I'm a fan of the Royals. I'm a fan of Eric Hosmer, so I want this to happen. So take anything I say with a grain of salt, because it's certainly not my most unbiased work when I comment on this, and I'm happy to be charged with being guilty of looking for what I wanted to hear out of my conversation with Dayton Moore. But you know, Dayton Moore beat his chest like I've never heard him beat his chest ever before. He talked about his ability to recruit in college, and he talked about the fact that when they've gone after a guy, they've always landed it. He said, you know, our track record speaks for itself, and I think it does. And you know, look, I don't pretend to know exactly what's going on in Eric Hosmer's head, and I don't know what the dollar figures are that are being exchanged here. But I believe Eric Hosmer would like to stay in Kansas City if the money is right, and I definitely believe the Royals want him. Look, their payroll is already slated to be $100 million plus in 2018. That's without Eric Hosmer. There is a lot of money in this organization. I think a lot more money than they were spending back in the day, and it's not a coincidence that they went 148 last year and are projected around 141 this year. I think the money is there, and they're still in the black when they spend that kind of money. And here's the other part. So I believe that Dayton Moore is confident in what he can get done, but I think there's a limit, and if Scott Boras can push that limit beyond where the Royals will go, then the Royals will back out. But here's the thing that I think you got to keep in mind. Why is it that statistically speaking, and we all know that Eric Hosmer, his 100 RBI season was called one of the worst in the history of baseball. Okay, how come the Royals are supposed to get that, but everybody else in baseball is supposed to be fooled by the 100 RBI season, like the Yankees and the Red Sox and all those teams, which I presume spend some money on the metrics as well, are going to give $200 million deals, but the Royals are just going to wise up and know that the metrics aren't there. I think Scott Boras is selling his client because he knows he's got a problem. I don't think a $200 million offer is coming. I don't think a $185 million offer is coming, because I think teams know that about the metrics. They know what the weaknesses are, and that's not going to be there. I think there's a pretty good chance the Royals have the biggest offer, and I'll give a lean towards him staying here in Kansas City.
Jarrett, you're off the hook. Okay, we'll be back.
We took too long.
We got the first base next. We'll get the second base next week. Okay, our final hot topic is about second. We'll come back with some final thoughts from the crew right after this.